come on to the second urgent question, and I call Nigel Huddleston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To ask the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport if she will make a statement on the decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv FC fans from attending their fixture against Aston Villa.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last week, Aston Villa released a statement that away fans would not be permitted to attend their game against Maccabi Tel Aviv on the 6th of November. This decision was taken by Birmingham City Council on the advice of the Safety Advisory Group and based on a risk assessment by West Midlands Police. The risk assessment considered a range of factors such as the risk of protest, the threat of wider disorder, previous fixtures with Maccabi Tel Aviv fans and the impact on the wider community. It is a long-established principle set out in law that the Police and Safety Advisory Group are operationally independent of government and it is for them to take decisions on safety. However, this decision has far wider implications. In any situation, there is a risk that must be assessed, but in this case, the risk this event presents is in no small part down to the risk inherent in where the away fans come from and who they are. It is in that context that the solution that is proposed to exclude a group from attending is wrong. It chooses exclusion rather than looking at the full options available to manage that risk and include. And Madam Deputy Speaker, this is about who we are as a country. A lot of the public discussion around this game has focused on events in the Middle East. Let me be clear. It is perfectly legitimate to hold and express strong views about what is happening in Israel and Gaza. People are free in this country to protest peacefully. They are free to lobby government and event organisers about which countries can participate in tournaments. And they are free to choose not to attend events or purchase products that they find unacceptable. But they are not entitled to dictate who can participate in competitions, attend a football match or walk the streets for fear of threats or reprisals. Whatever your view on the events overseas, this is a fundamental principle that this government will fiercely defend. And let me be clear, this decision was not made in a vacuum. It's set against the backdrop of rising anti-Semitism here and across the world and an attack on a synagogue in Manchester in which 2 innocent men were killed. It has a real-world impact on a community who already feel excluded and afraid. It is therefore completely legitimate to support the independence of the police to conduct that risk assessment and to question the conclusion that follows when it excludes the people at the heart of that risk. Following the decision last week, the Government has been working with West Midlands Police and Birmingham City Council to support them to consider all the options available and to tell us what resources are needed to manage the risks to ensure fans from both teams can attend safely. If the assessment is revised, the Safety Advisory Group will meet again to discuss options. In the last few days, I've spoken to Jewish community groups, sporting organisations, fan groups and Aston Villa Football Club to ensure we have the fullest picture possible. The Home Secretary and the Community Secretary have had extensive discussions with the police, local government and others. Ultimately, the law is clear that responsibility for this decision lies with local agencies. It is not for the government to assess the risks surrounding this football match, but we are clear that resources will not be the determining factor in whether Maccabi Tel Aviv fans can be admitted, and that this fundamental principle that nobody in our country will be excluded from participating in public life because of who they are must be upheld.
Nigel Huddleston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Right Honourable Lady for those comments, because I'm sure most of us in this House will believe that the decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from the upcoming Europa League game against Villa is the wrong one. It's also embarrassing and a disgrace. Have we really reached the point where we cannot welcome visitors from overseas to our second city because we cannot guarantee their safety on British streets, in British football grounds? This is not how modern Britain should present itself to the world. And some, astoundingly including some in this House, have claimed that the ban on Israeli fans is for their own safety. Safety that has been put at risk precisely because of the anger and hatred being whipped up by some of those very same people demanding a ban. equating football fans with terrorists, for example. We cannot give in to this kind of rhetoric, and I hope the Minister will join me in condemning it. Football and all sport has incredible potential to bring people together. It should not be used as a deliberate tool to divide. The UK has a great and hard-won reputation for hosting major international sporting events. Banning an entire fan base sends the wrong signal and may jeopardise our ability to host such events in the future. And how disappointing is this decision to the residents of Birmingham, who only 3 years ago welcomed people from around the world to the Commonwealth Games, which showcased Birmingham and the West Midlands at its diverse, vibrant and hospitable best. We therefore call on the government to intervene and get this ban reversed. But Aston Villa and the Safety Advisory Group may only be able to do so with guarantees of additional support from the government. So can the Minister confirm what additional resources may be provided and who will pay for these additional resources? Can she confirm when the Home Office and DCMS were first made aware of the intent of the Safety Advisory Group to make this obviously controversial decision? And is she confident that they talked to all the right people before making the decision? And if the decision is reversed, what practical steps will be taken to ensure the safety of all fans and residents? And while many football teams have some undesirable supporters intent on causing trouble, let's recognise the vast majority of fans want nothing more than to enjoy a good game of football. And if we are to truly wrap our arms around the Jewish community, as the Prime Minister promised following the attack on the synagogue in Manchester, does the Minister agree we need to take action and not just spout warm words? Finally, is the Minister confident that this incident will not jeopardise our ability to host major international sporting events in the future? Thank you.
Well, first of all, can I thank him for bringing this urgent question to the House? I know it's of concern to so many parliamentarians and so many people outside of this place. And can I thank him for the tone that he's adopted? I've watched with dismay as there have been people in this debate who've sought to use this moment to heighten tensions. And I want to commend him for the way that he's conducted himself and his part in this. He asked a particularly important question about who will pay. Across government, we are united. The Home Secretary, myself, the Chancellor, the Prime Minister and the Community Secretary are united in saying that we will find the resources that need to be made available once the West Midlands Police has come forward with the risk assessment, and we'll work with as one government to make sure that those resources are forthcoming because of the important principle, fundamental principle that is at stake about what sort of country we are. He asked if I was confident that the decision was made based on the right information. I've seen a lot of facts flying around that don't seem to have any evidential basis, particularly on social media in recent days. We're working with our international partners to make sure that West Midlands Police have the fullest range of information on which to base an assessment. He mentioned also the impact that this is having on the Jewish community. I absolutely feel and understand that, and I've had numerous conversations with members of the Jewish community over the last few days. We have experience of policing events in this country, vast experience of policing events in difficult circumstances, and he's right to say that there are a minority of supporters in every club, and in this club in particular, whose behaviour is reprehensible. But that is not the case for all fans, and what is astonishing in this case is that it is unprecedented in modern times that all away fans have been banned because of the behaviour of a small minority. So we're working with the police to try and support them to be able to look at that in the round. He's right to say that we need action, not just warm words. I am particularly concerned, having met with Jewish fans, about the way that some of the events in the Middle East are not just having an impact on national competitions, but are also having an impact on grassroots sport as well. And it's something that I've committed to working with them on, to make sure that young people in this country can turn up to local grassroots events and not feel anxious about participating or not being able to participate because of who they are. And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, he asked if he asked about the signal that this sends to others around the world. That is not lost on us. We are a tolerant, diverse nation, and Birmingham, as one of our great cities, is a great example of that. That is what we're fighting to uphold and defend. That's the Britain that we believe in. And the message from this government is that this government will always defend that country. We are a better country than some of the comments that have been made and the actions that have been taken in the last week, and we're determined to uphold that.
Graham Stringer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My right honourable friend will know from her discussions with the Jewish community that will be similar to the discussions I've had following the dreadful murders at the Heaton Park synagogue just over a fortnight ago, that what the Jewish community want is to be ensured by the government and local authorities and other security forces that they can live and walk about in this country in complete safety. It would be whatever the risk assessment in Birmingham was, it would be a disgrace and a shame if this country could not guarantee the security of a group of Jewish fans coming from Israel walking down our streets. Can she give that assurance to the House this afternoon?
You know, the honourable gentleman is a great champion for his Jewish constituents, and I've met with Jewish community organisations over the last few days to give them that assurance that the government will always defend and uphold their right to participate fully in public life, and that includes being able to attend football matches. I should say in a number of the discussions that we've had with partners, they've made the point to us that many of the people who want to attend this match as Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are actually British citizens who live here in the UK, and that's what has, you know, should be in all of our minds when we think about who we're excluding from being able to attend.
Spokesperson Anne Sabine.
Deputy Speaker, the decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from attending their team's Europa League match because West Midlands Police couldn't keep the fans safe is a serious mistake and sets a dangerous precedent. We appreciate the difficulty in ensuring the safety of fans and local communities, but the Lib Dems believe this decision must be reversed and the government should work alongside local authorities and the police to make sure the match goes ahead with both sets of fans. The situation at Maccabi Tel Aviv's match in Israel this weekend reminds us of the importance of ensuring our police forces have the resources and support they need to keep major events safe. The UK has made significant progress in tackling football hooliganism, but the police must always be prepared for small numbers of fans who seek to cause trouble. So I asked the Minister, will she recommend bubble-like security restrictions to boost security checks and police presence around the stadium to ensure everyone's served and protected? Finally, the Home Secretary stated she didn't know about fans being banned until the night before it was announced. However, she was apparently aware as early as last week that a decision was being made. Can the Minister clarify when the Home Secretary was made aware of the potential ban? And if she knew last week, why didn't she intervene earlier?
Thank you. Well, can I thank her for her questions? I'll try and address them all. In relation to the Home Secretary, I think she's given a full account of the fact that she was kept updated about these events, but that the decision wasn't communicated to us in government until, sadly, we saw the statement from Aston Villa on the recommendation of the police. I want to be really clear that the police have a role here that is operationally independent of government, that they have every right and responsibility to carry out, which is to assess the risk. I have no basis to believe that the police did anything other than act in good faith in trying to make that assessment. The reason that the government has intervened in this case is because we believe that it has far wider implications and it breaches the upshot of the decision is that it breaches a fundamental principle about who is entitled to participate in public life and walk our streets safely. And because of that, we have been forthcoming with all of the support and resource that West Midlands Police may need in order to ensure this game can go ahead in the manner that she suggests.
Lawrence Turner.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The people charged with the protection of public safety carry a heavy burden, and not all the information that they considers has yet been laid out in the public domain. However, I have deep concerns about the principle of block banning of entire groups of opposition fans, some of whom, let us not forget, may be UK residents or nationals themselves, and also some of the descriptions of Birmingham in parts of the press and other areas of our political life which are not a true account of our city. Does the Secretary of State agree that Birmingham remains overwhelmingly a diverse and welcoming place? And will she join me in commending the calm leadership that the Council leader, John Cotton, has brought to bear by calling for a review?
Thank you. I mean, we've worked, my honourable friend, the Community Secretary, has worked very closely with Birmingham City Council, and I would like to echo his comments about the leader and commend them for the constructive way in which they've worked with us and the police and other local agencies in order to deal with this. And, I would also add to that we have worked very constructively with West Midlands Police as well, with Aston Villa Football Club, and with a whole host of agencies in order to try and resolve this situation. He's right to say that it is unprecedented in recent times that an entire group of away supporters have been entirely banned from a game, and it's something that we in this country do not make a habit of. We've become very skilled at policing football matches, even where there's considerable risk involved, in a way that includes everyone. And can I finally just say that those who seek to divide and exclude people in Birmingham should consider the signal that it sends to the rest of the world about one of our great and vibrant cities.
Dame Caroline Dinage.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. On Friday, the club's chief executive raised concerns about what this ban on fans was actually signalling, and the Secretary of State will be aware this is not the first time we've heard about Jewish people not feeling safe at either cultural or sporting events, whether that was the scenes at Glastonbury this year or the boycotts and protests and cancellations of Jewish performers at venues around the country. I'm really grateful for the Secretary of State's commitment today, but can she set out a bit more specifically what she is doing to ensure that Jewish people feel safe and welcome to participate in cultural life in the UK?
Earlier this year, I hosted a round table with Lord Mann and the Board of Deputies to discuss the role of Jewish people in the widest range of public life, particularly in relation to arts, film, TV, broadcasting and media. She is absolutely right to say that this specific case is not occurring in a vacuum, and we are working on a strategy to make sure that Jewish people are included and that their contribution to British public life is recognised and celebrated.
Barker.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to precursor my comments by saying everybody in this place was horrified by the attack on the synagogue in Heaton Park, and my comments today are purely based on safety, because a year before the Hillsborough disaster, safety concerns at Sheffield Wednesday Stadium were raised by an official, but the ex-council safety officer was told by bosses in 1988 to keep his nose out of such concerns. Nobody in this place needs to be reminded what happened as a result of ignoring that safety advice. 97 innocent men, women and children lost their lives. We have safety advisory groups for a reason, and it is a slippery slope when safety concerns are ignored, and I believe unprecedented for a government to try to overturn such advice. And I will respectfully disagree with the Secretary of State when she says that bans don't go on, because we've had lots of cases, both nationally and internationally, the most recent one being Napoli versus Frankfurt. So can the Secretary of State be explicitly clear? Has she seen the safety advice? If so, does she disagree with the safety advice? And if she does disagree, can she tell the House on what ground she disagrees? Because it is imperative this House is clear, because if you are successful, if the government is successful in having the decision overturned, particularly after the scenes we witnessed last night with the Israeli derby, then people are going to ask questions.
Can I thank my honourable friend, and as somebody who represents some of the Hillsborough families, can I say to her that we as a government, and I as an individual member of that government, take the safety of all fans and the wider community with the utmost seriousness. We would never treat safety as a secondary consideration. But she says that we're trying to overturn the police advice. We're doing absolutely no such thing, and I think I made that completely clear in the statement that I just made. We are working with West Midlands Police and local partners to make sure that we take into account the risks that they have raised in order to ensure that this game can go ahead safely with both sets of fans present. And I would say to her that yes, in the discussions and the consideration that I've given to the risks that West Midlands Police have highlighted, what is completely different about this case is not just that it's the first time since the early 2000s in this country that a decision has been taken to ban entirely away fans from attending a game. It's that the risk assessment is based in no small part on the risk posed to those fans that are attending who support Maccabi Tel Aviv because they are Israeli and because they are Jewish. Now, we should be appalled by that and never allow it to stand.
Andrew Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I commend the Secretary of State for the tone and the clarity of her statement today, and echo what she said about the police making the decision in good faith. But it is, as she has said, the wrong decision. And secondly, can I echo what she has said about it not being the sort of country we are to make that decision. It's not the sort of city Birmingham is either, where there are outstandingly good community relations. And that is largely because of the excellent work that is done by the faith communities across the city.
Can I echo those comments and also take this moment to pay tribute to those faith organisations? The Community Secretary and I have been really pleased to be able to work with them in anticipation of the threats of significant disorder that have been made by people outside of Birmingham who seek to travel to Birmingham to create strife. Their message is ours as well. They are not welcome there.
Gareth Snell.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. It was reported over the weekend that in August a legal observer to one of the protests was arrested simply for wearing a Star of David because it was considered to be antagonising. Now, with the decision to ban the Maccabi fans from coming to the UK, there is a genuine cumulative effect on what it means for Jewish people in this country and the effect that it has on those people that are family of Jewish people in this country who watch their friends and family tortured about whether or not they have a role in this country anymore, that we should all be significantly aware of. But I also think, Madam Deputy Speaker, the challenge will be, if this ban is allowed to go ahead, the game after the Maccabi game is with the Swiss-based young boys. Their fans have been involved in 2 riots, including hospitalisations. If their away team is not banned, the question should be, what is different between the Maccabi fans and the young boys fans, and what is it that we want to talk about?
I think the honourable gentleman put it better than I could.
Ayub Khan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the Member of Parliament for that very area that is set to host this match, and for the community whose public safety many members of this House wish to play fast and loose with, I know the reality on the ground, and I know that there has been a deliberate, disingenuous move by many to make this a matter of banning Jews, to conflate matters of policing with those of religion. Just this morning, I saw a video of Jewish community leaders standing outside the Villa Park saying they too support the banning of this team. I will release that video outside of this chamber. But those who are not welcome in Aston are hooligans that have a long history of violence and vile racism. Chants like F the Arabs, we will rape their daughters, that there are no schools in Gaza because there are no children left in Gaza. It's these hooligans that are not welcome. Madam Deputy Speaker, can I ask the Minister, how many millions of British taxpayers' money is her government offering to overturn the respected expert judgment of the West Midlands Police and the Safety Group?
Well, look, can I just say to him that in relation to the specific incidents and chants that he mentions, I am appalled by those, and none of us in this House should seek to condone that in any sense. But can I say to him as well that it is entirely disingenuous to say that you respect cohesion and inclusion when you're seeking to divide and exclude.
Can I ask members... Order. Can I ask members to temper their language and not accuse each other of being disingenuous? I call Amanda Martin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, we know ensuring that all fans can attend sporting events in safety and without fear must always be our first priority. And we must fully respect the operational independence of the police. Can the Secretary of State reassure the House that this government will provide the necessary resources to support local policing in this case, particularly in light of the heightened and very deep concerns around anti-Semitism, to ensure that resourcing is not the reason given for the block banning of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans?
I'm really happy to give her that assurance.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As a British Muslim who grew up in Birmingham in the West Midlands and did my business there, I was deeply saddened by this decision. I was saddened for the British Jewish community. We are a tolerant, diverse nation, a tolerant, diverse region. And this decision was bad for two reasons. It was bad for Birmingham, it was bad for the West Midlands, and it was actually bad for the British Muslim community. Many of them have reached out saying they did not want to be dragged into this, and they feel similar amounts of anger. My worry now is there's a flashpoint that's been created, which is the second problem with this decision, because now there will be those who will want to take advantage of the fact that this is now in the headlines. There will be those who will want to come and cause trouble and drag Birmingham's name and the West Midlands name through the mud.
No, look, can I really acknowledge that and say I too am saddened by the way in which this has played out, and I'm saddened about the impact on people in Birmingham who I've always found to be extremely welcoming, tolerant, and know that they're stronger for their diversity, not weakened by it. He's right to say that the recent events and the way in which a number of people have sought to prey on them has heightened the level of risk. That's something that West Midlands Police, of course, have to consider. But my commitment to him and to all members of this House and to the people of Birmingham is that resources will not stand in the way of this going ahead.
Leishman. Thanks very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let me just say from the outset that all forms of bigotry is abhorrent. A Dutch police report into the disorder in Amsterdam at the Ajax versus Maccabi Tel Aviv fixture determined that Maccabi fans tore down a Palestinian flag, set fire to it, and chanted, and I quote, "Fuck you, Palestine." That is vile, disgusting Islamophobia in action. How about preventing that from happening here? Because there is an extreme hooligan element of Maccabi fans that consistently behave in this manner. Does the government not see that Islamophobic behaviour is highly likely if these fans travel to Birmingham? What about the safety of our Muslim citizens?
Thank you. I mean, look, everybody in this House is entitled to strong opinions, but they're not entitled to a selective version of the facts. And it's absolutely right to point out that there, amongst the minority of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, in the instance that he raised, there was appalling behaviour which none of us, including most Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, would not seek to condone. But there were also attacks on those fans as well, and that has formed part of the assessment of risk that Westminster Police have had to make. And look, I think it is just worth me reiterating the point about just how rare it is for away fans to be excluded wholesale from attending European football matches in this country. As my honourable friend pointed out just a moment ago, we've had to deal with this in this country for a very long time. We've done it recently and in many parts of the country, and we have found a way to police safely and effectively. It cannot be beyond our collective wit to do so in this case.
Wendy Morton.
Deputy Speaker, as things stand, the decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans reflects so badly on Birmingham, the West Midlands and our country. At a time when actually football can so often bring people and communities together. So can the Secretary of State assure us that she will do all she can to make sure if there are reviews underway, these are concluded before kick-off?
And I can hear her frustration. I do understand it. We're working at pace, pulling every lever at our disposal to give the support to the police and to Birmingham City Council that they need. Of course, the police do need to be able to conduct that risk assessment, to do the review, to do it thoroughly, because the safety of fans and the community has to be paramount. But we're working as fast as we can, and we're determined to get there as quickly as we can, not least to provide clarity to both clubs so that they can make the necessary preparations.
I know this topic is very important, but I do need questions to be short and answers to be just as precise. Ian Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. First, can I pay tribute to those volunteers who serve on the SAG safety advisory groups, a thankless but usually important task and we'll be really worried about today. The safety of football fans has at times been at the very bottom of priorities in this place. So can my right honourable friend reassure me that the safety of supporters is absolutely paramount in the thinking of the government rather than the politics around it.
I'm really happy to give him that assurance and want to thank him for the work that he's done over many years, not just on Hillsborough, but on football as a whole.
Claudine.
I welcome the remarks of the Secretary of State today and commend her on her tone and her conciliatory attitude to this. Yes, safety is paramount for all football supporters, but it does not, as she said, take place in a vacuum, and we are now in a very tense situation in this country. She mentioned a strategy going ahead to make the Jewish communities feel more welcome. Can she outline a wee bit more of that and when what we might expect and when we might see it?
In addition to the specific instance that we're talking about, I've been extremely concerned to hear examples from members of the Jewish community about Jewish film directors having their shows cancelled, not because it was to do with anything in Israel and Gaza, but because they were Jewish. I've heard stories from Jewish presenters who have been advised to stay off the airwaves, and I am working with them with the help of Lord Mann and the support of Lord Mann to make sure that we pursue not just an overarching strategy, but also I've had discussions with individual organisations as well to make sure that where those incidents take place, that they know that they don't have to challenge those things alone.
Dr. Peter Prinsley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I would also like to thank the Minister for her statement and for the tone in which she delivered it. The police always act in the interests of public safety, and I'm sure there was no anti-Semitic intent intended. But it is the threat of the mob that has led to this decision. And will the Minister agree that we must never allow the rule of the mob?
Completely.
Sir Duncan Smith.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I commend the Honourable Lady's statement. It covered everything precisely, and I disagree with one or two of those who have come out against her on this. I simply say this, that when they did the partial assessment, of course, everybody centred on Amsterdam, but they had played a game in Istanbul, and there was no trouble at all in that game. And so it's a bit partial to choose one bit of evidence or the other. And I simply say to her, with the rise of anti-Semitism now in the UK, she is making the right decision to protect those people.
I'm grateful to him for that, and I think he raises the really important question about whether this is proportionate and whether, if there hadn't been a risk to the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans because of where they come from and who they are, whether this decision would have played out in the way that it has. That is what is exercising a lot of members of this House, and it's obviously a view that we share.
Richard Bergen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Isn't it the case that the police acting on intelligence believe Maccabi team fans shouldn't be allowed to attend the match for public safety reasons, and their record of hooliganism will have contributed to that? Bans like this have happened with other teams' fans across Europe. In this case, there's been a dangerous push to again claim that any criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. Shouldn't the government just admit that on this it's got it badly wrong and let the police do their job without political interference? Because surely the real issue here is the right of local people to be kept safe.
Well, look, can I just say to the honourable gentleman that the difference in this case is that, and what has tipped the balance and weight of the decision is the risk presented to Maccabi Tel Aviv fans because they are Israeli and in many cases because they are British and they're Jewish.
Danny Kruger.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. What has happened is that a political campaign, I'm ashamed to say led by members of this House, has caused the police to change their decision, to change their calculation. So the Culture Secretary is right to suggest that this is not simply an operational decision. She's talking a good game, but she also says that all she can do is to question the conclusion of the police, and now she's offering more resources, asking them politely if they change their decision. Does the government not recognise that under the 1996 Police Act, the government does have the power to direct police forces to make certain decisions, and if necessary to dismiss the Chief Constable? And if she doesn't think that, Will she clarify the law? Will the government clarify the law to ensure that the government can have the power to overturn decisions like this?
There is a long-established principle in this country, as set out in law, that the police are operationally independent, and I'm surprised to hear the honourable gentleman seek to question that. I've been really clear that the risk assessment and the decisions around safety and what would be needed for this game to go ahead safely with all fans present is for the police, but what is a right and proper role for the government is to work with them, to support them, to ensure that that happens. That's not just a question of resourcing. We're looking at a whole range of factors and practices that are well established in this country and across Europe, including making sure that you have transportation that gets fans safely to and from the game. We're looking at the numbers of ticket sales that are made available to away fans. We're looking at the measures, many measures that have tried and tested in order to ensure that elements who would seek to create trouble are excluded from the game. It is absolutely not right to characterise the position of this government as simply standing on the sidelines. When it comes to this fundamental principle about who is entitled to walk the streets and attend football games in our country because of who they are, it is for us non-negotiable.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm sure the Secretary of State will find the irony in the fact that last weekend and next weekend, Premier League footballers were taking the knee, demonstrating on driving out racism from football. Now, this is anti-Semitism at its heart. So the clear issue is, if the issue is the safety of the fans outside the ground, in many cases on away matches, the away supporters will be escorted by the police on coaches to the entrance and then collected from the exit to go back to the airport. There's no reason why that can't be done now. So will she then take back to the police the case of saying, let's make people safe? Because the alternative to that view is that, for example, I support Tottenham Hotspur. We have a massive Jewish population. If that means that we are not safe to go to Aston Villa because of attitudes that will approach outside the ground, that is a demonstration that in the UK, Jewish people are not safe on our streets.
Fundamentally agree with him.
Sammy Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And first of all, can I congratulate the Secretary of State on the very clear message which she has given out today. And is it not a fact that, despite some of the excuses coming from behind me, that this is all about the religion of the supporters who will be attending this match, and indeed the only people who they're likely to be in danger from are the hate mobs that we have seen marching across our streets for months previously, waving Palestinian flags and supporting terrorists. And would she agree with me that the police ought to be told, you make the streets safe for everyone, Jewish people as well as anyone else, and that is their duty, and they should live up to that?
Look, I would say it's all of our duty to make sure that we live up to that as a country, and in the vast majority of cases that we do. And I would just also make the point that, you know, to those who say that this is a perfectly legitimate thing to try and drive the fans out of the game, I would just make the point that our assessment is that the vast majority of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans who want to attend are British. The only distinguishing feature is that they're Jewish.
Alex Sharbrook.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, my Jewish community come to me for years now saying how unsafe they feel, and that anti-Semitism has risen its head in this country now for many years. The Secretary of State's tone today is absolutely welcome, and she is absolutely right. But, Madam Deputy, let me put it bluntly. Jewish hatred in this country has grown and grown and grown. So may I ask the Secretary of State to pull every lever she can to make sure that the idea of Jewish hatred is not shown to be borne out by saying, because you are Jewish, because you're Israeli, we hold you all responsible for the actions of a government. And the reality is, Madam Deputy Speaker, that is xenophobia, that is racism, and that is anti-Semitism, and needs to be called out.
And I'm happy to share him in calling that out.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Would the Secretary of State confirm that in coming to this decision, the authorities in Birmingham took account of the behaviour of Maccabi Haifa fans in many other occasions and many other places, decided it was unsafe for the match to be played in Birmingham? It is absolutely not about banning Jewish or any other people from going to the match or going to Birmingham. Can we separate the two issues about the behaviour of a group of fans from the wider question where everybody, Jewish, Muslim or anything else, must be safe to walk the streets of this country?
On his last statement, that everybody must be safe to walk the streets of this country, I agree with him, and I would just say perhaps if he wanted to turn to his left and right, he might make that point to the people that he now associates with, because that is not what we've heard from them over the last few weeks. And look, can I just clear this up, because I've heard a lot of hot takes on social media about the evidence on which the police rely to come to this decision. It is absolutely right to say that the police, as you would expect, took into account in particular the game in Amsterdam, at which Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were present and where a small element caused the most appalling disorder, but they also took into account the very real risks presented to Maccabi Tel Aviv fans on the basis that Maccabi Tel Aviv is an Israeli team and on the basis that many of the fans attending are Jewish. And I would just hope that he would be as exercised about that as he is about the behaviour of those fans.
Sir Julian Lewis.
Hopefully we can rely on the police to arrest any hooligans who break the law, whichever team they're supporting. But will the government take into account the fact that, as they're knowing the way in which terrorist minds work, as there will be so much concentration on this particular location with so many police resources, Jewish establishments in that particular part of the country need to be extra careful on that day that advantage isn't sought to be taken by people who mean them harm.
Yes, and he'll be aware, because it's all played out publicly, that there have been specific threats towards Jewish people and Jewish organisations, and that's obviously something that the police and we are taking extremely seriously. I have to say that because of the way that those on all sides of this debate have sought to heighten tensions over the past week, because of that, there are concerns about the safety of a whole range of people across the community, Muslims, Jews, and the wider community as well. And a number of members have made the point that there is far more work that needs to be done to diffuse these tensions, to take the heat out of this situation, to support everybody in this country, and particularly to be absolutely emphatic, as the Honourable Gentleman made the point about just a moment ago, that the events, that nobody in Britain is responsible for the events that are playing out in the Middle East, and to hold them responsible, whether it's British Muslims or British Jews, is entirely unacceptable.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Last year, the Chief Constable of the West Midlands Police Force said he told Muslim elders that he would always police without fear or favour, and he would not tolerate any sort of racism. But the banning of Maccabi fans is quite clearly racism. So does the Secretary of State agree with me that if the police chiefs cannot police a football match, they should no longer be in office?
I don't think it's helpful to question people's motives. In the work that we've done with the West Midlands Police, I have no hesitation in saying that they have done an assessment of the risks, as is their responsibility. What happens next is not just a question for the West Midlands Police, it's a question for all of us. And the reason that the government has intervened in this case is because the police doing their job to assess the safety and the risks that are posed across the board, the decision that they've come to has wider implications that we believe have led to the wrong decision and cannot stand. But I don't question the motives of the police in this for a moment. I think our job is to work with them and support them to be able to police this match in a way that ensures that people can attend and they can attend safely.
Speaker, the message this decision sends is that the police will bow to religious pressure and legitimises anti-Semitism. The Secretary of State makes reference to the game between Ajax and Maccabi Tel Aviv. The vast majority of fans on that evening arrested were Ajax fans. They actually play Chelsea at Stamford Bridge on Wednesday evening, and no one's talked about banning them from attending that game. Article 27.04 of the Europa League regulation states a rescheduled match can be completed if necessary without spectators. The home club must have access to a backup stadium. Given it is now likely that this fixture will attract bad faith actors to Birmingham who aren't fans of either team looking to cause trouble, what assessment has she made of playing the match behind closed doors at a neutral venue or a venue where the police are prepared to provide security?
We as a government are not prepared to accept that people cannot attend a football match in Birmingham because of who they are. And there are many, many Aston Villa fans who are looking forward to this fixture. There is no risk posed by them. It's in their home city. They should be able to attend. It is also our very strong view, as he sets out, that the majority of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans should be allowed to attend, as they have done to many other matches, safely and not discriminated against because of who they are. So we're working with the police and other local partners to make sure that we do everything that we can to achieve that end and deal with the wider issues that many members here have raised.
Zara Sultana. Deputy Speaker, Maccabi Tel Aviv's racist fan hooliganism cannot be separated from Israeli militarism. Many of these fans are active or former soldiers who have taken part in Israel's genocide in Gaza. They should be investigated for war crimes the moment they set foot onto British soil, not welcomed into our stadiums. And let's be clear, this Labour government is no innocent bystander. It has armed Israel's genocide, it has provided diplomatic cover, and it has shamefully denied that genocide is even taking place. So I ask the Minister, is there anything this Labour government won't do to defend the genocidal apartheid state of Israel?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I like the Honourable Lady, but I have to say that she is doing the people of Birmingham no favours with that sort of rhetoric. You know, when it comes to the conflation that she makes between all of the Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters and the actions of the Israeli government, that is precisely what the honourable gentleman was talking about blaming, in many cases, British citizens who happen to support Maccabi Tel Aviv for actions that are taking place in the Middle East. Conflating being Jewish and Israeli, I have to say, I'm afraid, is in itself anti-Semitism. I think she should take more care with her remarks.
John Cooper.
Birmingham's best band is, of course, Black Sabbath, and they counsel us that if you listen to fools, the mob rules. This is a case of mob rule here. The Secretary of State's done a tremendous job of setting out the government's position. Will she review, whilst still maintaining police independence?
Order.
If Mr Kruber and Ms Zara Sultana want to continue their own personal debate, they need to take it out of the chamber. Mr Cooper.
Deputy Speaker, back to the SABs. Will she review the rules around sporting events and entertainment events to make sure that this government, and indeed any future government, is not rendered impotent in the face of the mob?
Hear, hear. Well said.
Well, look, we're not considering making changes to the principle that has stood for a long time about the operational independence of the police. But as I've set out to other members of the House, we are very clear that there is a role for government here, and we're determined to play our part in helping to resolve this. I have to say, listening to the racket that's going on in that corner, you know, I've just talked about the impact that a lot of this is having on young people in this country who are turning up, putting their strip on a Sunday morning, going to play football and finding that they're not welcome. That sort of behaviour is exactly the opposite of what this House should be modelling.
James Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I first of all welcome and thank the Secretary of State very much for her statement. I was saddened to hear of this decision, and more importantly the message it sends to our Jewish community. This is, I believe, a dire situation. We must make use of the UK policing services to make a way for this sports event and for fans to attend in safety. Jews are welcomed and protected everywhere, as are people of all faiths and none. To have a scenario to give into intimidation and threat is a slippery slope to appeasement of countries within our country. What steps will be taken, Madam Deputy Speaker, to ensure deployment of any police service for Northern Ireland, for instance, have been used just in the last month to do some of the policing? Police must be used to allow international supporters to attend and to send the correct message that we're one nation and freedom is not zoned or excluded in any area of this United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
We're looking, as I made clear, at a whole range of options to provide the support and resources that West Midlands Police need. We're very clear that this can't just be a responsibility of them alone. There are wider principles at stake, and we're providing everything that they need in order that we can live up to the principles that he just set out.
Adnan Hussain.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The government, politicians from across the House and the media establishment have condemned the proposed ban on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans as anti-Semitic. Yet this group has a record of violent behaviour, racist chants including death to Arabs and the mocking of the killing of Gazan children. Given the UK's adoption of the IHRA definition, which rightly warns against holding Jewish people collectively responsible for Israel's actions, does the Minister agree that criticism of Israel with its ongoing genocide, war crimes, breaches of international law and current genocide trial at the ICJ, with anti-Semitism against British Jews or Jewish people in general, actually undermines that definition? I won't sit down. And if the UK rightly...
Is that the question? Is that the question? Quickly put the question.
And if the UK rightly imposes cultural and sporting boycotts on countries like Russia over war crimes, why should Israel be treated differently?
I made absolutely clear that it is perfectly acceptable for people to hold strong and passionate views about what is happening in Israel and Gaza, that there is a right in this country to make representations to sporting governing bodies and the government about who can participate in internet. I mean, he's not listening, so I think I'll just leave it there.
Look at Adam.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Anti-Semitism is vile, and no one should be prevented from enjoying their sporting game, whatever it may be, simply because of their faith. And as a football fan, I take the decision to ban any fans very, very seriously. But the Prime Minister's decision to interfere with the independence of West Midlands Police and SAG should concern all of us in this House, especially when the same Prime Minister failed to intervene when British aid workers were killed, when they were volunteering for the World Central Kitchen, when he failed to intervene when his own MPs were denied access to Israel and the West Bank, and when he failed to intervene when the IDF boarded flotillas with British citizens and detaining them. Millions now will be spent on a football match defending some hooligans, not all, who chant there are no schools in Gaza because there are no children in Gaza. So does the Minister agree with me the Prime Minister should respect the independence of the police and the Safety Advisory Group?
I really do wonder whether, had West Midlands Police made a different decision, whether he would have come to this House to question the decision that had been made. And I suspect, I'm afraid, that the answer is yes. And look, this is part of the problem with this debate, is that, you know, the chants that he talks about, I think, appall absolutely everybody in this House. He characterises the government in a particular way. He fails to make reference to the very many robust actions that we've taken around the Israeli government's actions in Gaza. We have condemned them. We've sanctioned members of the Israeli government. We've restricted arms sales to Israel. And we have been out there on the ground playing the part in peace negotiations and pushing for aid to get in at pace, and still are. But he doesn't reference that because, frankly, sadly, I think he is trying to gain political support for his position. What I would say to him is, honestly, and there's only a few of them that have bothered to listen to any of this debate, but what I would say to them is, if you really do want to resolve this, then work with us in order to make sure that all communities can express their passionate, deeply held views in appropriate and peaceful ways, but that this country can remain an open, tolerant, diverse place where everybody is free to walk the streets and attend football games, regardless of who they are.
Final question, Iqbal Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. After the conflation of anti-Semitism with the banning of football hooligans who happen to come from Israel, and the abuse that I've received and other people who've received for supporting the ban on safety grounds, I must put on record that I and those people are not anti-Semitic, never have been and never will be. The Prime Minister, if I may, The Prime Minister called the decision to ban the violent Maccabi hooligans by West Midlands Police and Birmingham City Council Safety Advisory Group as anti-Semitism. The leader of Reform said the police gave in to extremist intimidation. The leader of the Liberal Democrats called for the decision to be reversed, saying you don't tackle anti-Semitism by banning its victims. And racist comments from the would-be leader of the Tories said he was wrong that the integration has failed in Birmingham. Madam Deputy Speaker, let me ask this. Is it anti-Semitic for the Israeli police to cancel a football derby in Tel Aviv last night after these same hooligans forced the match to stop through violence and injury to fans and the police? Do we want these scenes to be repeated in our stadiums and on our streets?
The decision that was made last night, as I understand it, was on the basis of rioting that was occurring at a live event. It was not a decision that is unprecedented in the UK from the Safety Advisory Group in recent times. Sorry, does he want to know? Yeah, yes. Okay. Well, in that case, can we just have a little bit more decorum, because there are people outside of this place whose lives are being directly affected by the debate that we're having and the tone of the debate that we're having. He tries to equate the two, but the truth is that he reveals himself in the language that he uses. He refers to the banning of football hooligans. He referred specifically to the decision to ban violent football hooligans. But this isn't a decision to ban football hooligans. This is a decision to ban all away fans from a game, which a safety advisory group has not done for nearly 25 years in this country. And it was a decision taken not on the grounds that he suggests, which was the risk posed by Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. It was a decision taken in no small part because of the risk posed to them because they support an Israeli team and because they are Jewish. And I would just gently say to him that if he is conflating everybody who supports an Israeli team, the vast majority of whom by definition will be Jewish, with being violent football hooligans, then he should consider whether he can really stand in front of this House and say that he is not behaving in a way that is anti-Semitic.
That is the end of the statement, and I'll give the points of order. I do not want to... Order, please be seated. I do not want to continue this debate. Is a point of order absolutely necessary right now and relevant? Ian Byrne, point of order.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Right Honourable Member for Chingford and Wolford Green stated today, Maccabi Tel Aviv, I played the game in Istanbul and there was no trouble at all. UEFA moved the game to Hungary after Turkish authorities refused to stage it in Turkey. Hungarian authorities then played it behind closed doors, hence no trouble.
I'm not sure that was actually a point of order, and I do not want to continue the debate, but he has indeed put his point on the record. Ms Sultana, is it an appropriate point of order? Zara Sultana, point of order.
On a point of order, Madam Deputy Speaker, in my question to the Secretary of State, I clearly stated that Maccabi Tel Aviv football team is inextricably linked to the Israeli state, which is an apartheid state. The boycott of apartheid regimes, such as apartheid South Africa, is a legitimate political stance. To label such a position as anti-Semitic, as the Secretary of State did, is entirely false and dangerous. And the way the Secretary of State has referred to me and my colleagues is also laced with Islamophobia.
Order, Ms Sultana. I do not have to repeat myself more than once. This is a continuation of the debate. The statement, the UQ, forgive me, has concluded. I will give the ministers a few moments to swap over as we move on to the education statements.